Hey everybody, welcome back to Sip&Talk. I'm Joe. And as always, I'm ready to dive into some seriously juicy info with you all today. It's like we're mixing up a knowledge cocktail here. Strong stuff, but oh, so smooth going down.
And I'm Sunny, your friendly neighborhood fact checker. I'll make sure we get all the ingredients right. Speaking of mixing things up, you know it's always a good blend? Travel whiskey and discovering awesome new things. You have to check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Yeah, Mickey's the best. He's always got something cool going on.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, no matter what time zone you're tuning in from today. Welcome back to Sip&Talk.
Yes, welcome back. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, because we have a pretty massive and really fascinating topic today.
Oh, absolutely. I am in such a great mood today. Got my iced Americano right here, and I am just ready to get into it.
Yeah.
So, Sip&Talkers, I want you to picture the scenario for a second.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You're sitting at home, right? And your incredibly aggressive neighbor.
Like the one who's literally always threatening you.
Yeah, exactly, that guy. So he suddenly shows up at your front door.
Okay.
And he's holding this massive, just beautifully wrapped box of premium chocolates.
I mean, sounds pretty great so far.
Right. But while he's smiling and handing you these amazing truffles, his other hand is gripping a high-voltage sun baton.
Oh, wow. Okay, that took a turn.
Yeah, and to actually eat the chocolate, the neighbor quietly demands that you sign over the deed to your house.
Man, that is an incredibly dark visual. But honestly, structurally, it perfectly captures the psychological reality of what we are unpacking today.
It really does. So today's topic on Sip&Talk is 10 love letters from Beijing, new airports, direct flights, and an arrest warrant.
It's a heavy one.
It is. We are looking at the recent 10-point policy that Beijing just rolled out, which is aimed at Taiwan. And, you know, if you read the press release on paper, it looks like this unbelievably generous economic stimulus package.
Right, like a huge win.
Exactly. We're talking about opening up free travel, creating these fast-track green channels for agriculture, easing business regulations. It sounds amazing.
It does.
But you look across the strait, and the reaction in Taiwan isn't exactly gratitude. On Taiwanese social media right now, it's being described as sugar-coated poison.
Yeah, it's literally triggering this sheer existential dread over there.
And that is the ultimate paradox we need to explore today. Like, we have to look at the mechanics behind the headlines. Why does a proposed development opportunity, which is, you know, pitched as a gesture of goodwill, trigger a literal panic attack across an entire population?
Right, because we need to understand exactly how a shiny gift box becomes a weapon.
Yes. But before we get to the fear aspect, what is actually inside this package? Like, walk me through the specifics of these 10 so-called love letters.
Sure. So the measures are pretty sweeping. They cover a really wide spectrum of civil and economic life. Like they propose establishing direct communication and youth exchange programs.
It sounds nice on paper.
Yeah, and they're calling for the resumption of direct flights, specifically opening up individual tourist travel from these massive consumer markets, places like Shanghai and Fujian.
Oh, wow, which is just huge for the hospitality sector.
Oh, absolutely. And then you have the infrastructure proposals. They want to physically and logistically integrate the Taiwanese islands of Kinmen and Matsu with the mainland.
Okay, physically integrating them how?
By building shared bridges and even allowing shared use of the Xiamen International Airport.
Wow.
Yeah. And finally, you have these fast-tracked green lane imports for Taiwanese agricultural and fishery products.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Because, I mean, if I'm running a logistics startup or I'm a farmer or even a hotel operator, my primary goals are just reducing friction and expanding my market access, right?
Exactly.
And this policy seems to offer both of those things. So I guess my question is, why wouldn't Taiwan just take the economic win here?
Well, because in geopolitics, the delivery mechanism is honestly just as critical as the policy itself. You have to look at who Beijing actually handed this package to.
Wait, what do you mean?
They announced these sweeping policies immediately following a high-profile meeting with an opposition party leader.
Oh.
Yeah. They intentionally and completely bypassed Taiwan's newly elected central government.
Wait, so translating this to the corporate tech world, this is not a friendly merger proposal at all. This is basically a hostile takeover tactic.
Precisely.
I mean, it would be like a massive, aggressive rival tech conglomerate completely ignoring your CEO and your board of directors, right?
Exactly like that.
And instead, they fly one of your mid-level managers out to their headquarters, and they negotiate this huge company-wide restructuring plan with someone who doesn't even have the legal authority to sign the contract.
Right, and they do that knowing full well it's going to create internal chaos. It delegitimizes the elected leadership, and it drives a massive wedge between the business sector who, desperately wants the revenue.
And the government, who is actually tasked with maintaining national security.
Exactly. So that completely reframes the entire package. It creates what I've seen analysts call a structural trust bankruptcy.
A structural trust bankruptcy. I like that term.
Yeah. When the baseline trust between two parties is at absolute zero, the actual content of the gift doesn't even matter anymore. You don't look at the chocolate, you look at the incredibly lethal terms of service attached to it.
That is such a good way to put it. So let's break down those terms of service, starting with the agricultural green channels you mentioned.
Sure.
Because on paper, fast-tracking imports sounds like a pretty straightforward economic boost.
It does. But Taiwanese farmers actually refer to this specific approach as a fatten, trap, and kill strategy.
Fatten, trap, and kill. Jeez. That is dark.
It really is. And to understand why they call it that, you have to look at the mechanical timelines of agricultural supply chains.
Right, I was going to ask about that, because an export is just an export, right? Why is selling pineapple suddenly considered a trap?
Because agriculture just doesn't pivot overnight. If you're farming pineapples or, say, raising groupers, it takes anywhere from 18 to 24 months from your initial capital investment to the actual harvest.
Right, the long cycle.
Exactly. You're optimizing your fertilizer, your breeding, your shipping logistics, all for one specific buyer's market.
So if you reorient your entire agricultural operation to serve this one massive, highly lucrative green channel that they're offering,
you become dangerously dependent. You are essentially fattened up. And history actually shows us the pattern of the trap here.
Wait, really? This has happened before.
Oh, yeah. Over the last few years, Beijing has enacted these sudden, devastating bans on Taiwanese agricultural exports virtually overnight.
Wow. Based on what?
Well, the stated reasons were always administrative, like claiming they found a microscopic pest or that the packaging failed some random inspection.
But I'm guessing the timing of those bans wasn't exactly random, was it?
Not at all. Border closures consistently mirrored moments of political tension or, elections in Taiwan.
Ah, I see. So the mechanism is basically weaponized reliance.
Yes, perfectly said.
Once 80% of a farming community's revenue comes from one single buyer, that buyer doesn't need to deploy military to destroy the community. They just, change a customs code, the fruit literally rots on the docks, and the local economy completely collapses.
Exactly. And that economic collapse puts immense pressure on local politicians. They're forced to comply with Beijing's demands just to get the borders reopened so that people can survive.
That is wild.
And we see that exact same mechanism proposed with the tourism policy, too. Opening individual travel from Shanghai and Fujian sounds like a massive cash injection, right?
Right. And I actually want to push back on the tourism fear for a second here.
Go for it.
Because I look at places like Paris, Tokyo, or, Barcelona. They struggle massively with over-tourism.
Oh, for sure. It's a huge issue globally.
But they don't view tourists as a literal national security crisis. Why wouldn't Taiwan just take the mainland tourist dollars, strictly regulate the hotels, and boost their local economy?
It's a fair question, but it's because a tourist arriving from a state that has a constitutionally mandated goal of political unification isn't just an economic actor.
Okay, explain that.
Let's look at how economic hostage-taking works at the municipal level. Imagine a coastal Taiwanese town that pivots its entire economy to serve mainland tour groups.
Okay, so they build the hotels, they hire the guides, open new restaurants.
Exactly. Once that town becomes 70 or 80% reliant on those specific tourists, just to keep the lights on, Beijing effectively holds the voting behavior of that town hostage.
Oh, wow.
Right. If the local mayor speaks out against unification, or if the national government passes a defense budget they don't like, Beijing can simply halt the issuance of travel visas tomorrow.
Just flip a switch, the tap is turned off overnight, the hotels go bankrupt, the restaurants close down.
Yep. And who do the local business owners blame? They don't blame Beijing, they blame their own local mayor for provoking the mainland.
That is insane. So the tour operators effectively become domestic political lobbyists for Beijing inside Taiwan.
You nailed it. It is a Trojan horse made entirely of cash.
Man, that makes the anxiety completely rational. Like, it's not about tourists secretly taking photos of military bases or anything like that.
No, not at all.
It's about engineering a local economic constituency that will literally vote against its own national security just to survive financially.
Exactly. Which brings us to the infrastructure proposals. Building bridges and sharing airports.
Right. Let's get into that.
This is where the physical geography becomes critical. The policy proposes pulling the Taiwanese islands of Kinmen and Matsu into a same-city living circle with the mainland city of Xiamen.
And for our Sip&Talkers who maybe haven't looked at a map of the region recently, Kinmen and Matsu are governed by Taiwan, but they sit incredibly close to mainland China.
Right. They are literally just a few miles off the coast of Xiamen, but they are hundreds of miles away from Taiwan proper.
Oh, wow. That's a huge distance gap.
It is. So Beijing's proposal to integrate their water grids, their power grids, and transit hubs is basically a textbook gray zone tactic.
Gray zone. Okay, I hear gray zone thrown around constantly in defense, tech, and policy circles. What does that actually mean functionally, like on the ground?
Sure. So a gray zone threat is an aggressive action that intentionally falls just below the threshold of conventional war. It is specifically designed to achieve a strategic or military objective without ever firing a single shot or, triggering an armed international response.
So by making these Taiwanese islands dependent on a mainland city for their basic daily utilities,
you bypass the need for a military invasion entirely. It is infrastructural assimilation.
Wow.
Right. I mean, if Xiamen controls the water pressure and the electricity grid, who technically holds the deed to the island, doesn't really matter anymore.
That is terrifyingly smart.
If Beijing wants compliance, they don't send troops. They just turn a valve. It tests the limits of sovereignty through municipal plumbing.
Man. And you have to contrast these infrastructural gifts with the incredibly bleak physical reality of the region right now.
Absolutely.
Because while Beijing is publishing these 10 love letters and offering green channels, the military drills have literally never paused.
Not for a moment. Fighter jets and naval vessels are constantly operating in the strait, and they're frequently crossing the median line.
Right. And let's define the median line for the audience real quick. Historically, that was the unofficial maritime border running down the center of the Taiwan Strait that kept the peace for decades, right? It was an understood buffer zone.
It was. And over the last few years, crossing it has shifted from like a rare provocation to a daily operational reality. The buffer zone is just gone.
It creates this maddening level of cognitive dissonance. You have one side holding a press conference saying, hey, let's share an airport and trade pineapples, while Taiwan is actively running massive nationwide town resilience drills.
Yeah, and those drills are comprehensive. They're simulating how to secure energy logistics, how to maintain satellite internet connectivity, and how to ration food and medical supplies during a total naval blockade.
You physically and psychologically cannot accept a gift basket when the person handing it to you is actively practicing how to starve your family.
Exactly. That is the core of the rejection. So when Taiwan looks at the entire package, sees the leverage and says, no thank you, what happens next?
Right, because I assume they don't just pack up the chocolate and go home.
No, they don't. Beijing has a very specific protocol for that rejection. The immediate response is a massive, coordinated propaganda pivot.
Okay, pivoting to what?
The narrative instantly flips from benevolent neighbor offering development to punishing the ungrateful. And this is where they deploy their ultimate trump card label, which is separatist.
Ah, okay. This ties directly into the arrest warrant part of our topic today. I was reading through the new legal guidelines and wanted lists published by Beijing.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It really is. They are threatening severe legal consequences, even the death penalty, for hardcore independent supporters. But the net they cast is so incredibly wide, it feels legally absurd.
It's a phenomenal example of the straw man fallacy, but like weaponized at a state level.
Walk me through the mechanics of that inflation, because historically the term Taiwan independence meant something very specific, didn't it?
It did. Decades ago, it referred to a specific political movement aiming to overthrow the current Republic of China constitutional framework and establish a brand new, formalized Republic of Taiwan.
Right, so it was a distinct, legally defined goal.
Exactly. But that is not how the term is being applied in these new arrest warrants, not at all.
How are they applying it now?
Beijing has aggressively hyperinflated the definition. Today, simply wanting to maintain the current status quo is classified as separatism.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand this. If you acknowledge the existence of the Republic of China, which, by the way, has been around since 1912, you are a separatist.
Yes. Under these new guidelines, if you prefer to live in a system with free elections, an uncensored internet, and independent courts, you are categorized as resisting unification.
Wow.
And resisting unification places you directly under the legal umbrella of being an independence extremist.
That is wild. I mean, it is exactly like Apple changing its iOS developer terms of service overnight and making the wording so incredibly vague that any developer who builds an app that simply competes with an Apple product is suddenly sued for IP theft and corporate espionage.
That's a great comparison.
By expanding the definition to cover literally everyone, the term entirely loses its original meaning.
And that is the massive strategic backfire of this policy. By criminalizing the baseline existence of 23 million people, Beijing has eliminated any possible middle ground.
Yeah, there's nowhere left to stand.
Right. There is no space left for negotiation or dialogue when simply wanting to cast a ballot makes you a wanted criminal.
It's crazy, but it also creates a strange kind of societal resilience, don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
I noticed that in Taiwan, this wanted list has morphed into a massive running joke.
Oh, absolutely.
People are literally texting their friends asking, hey, did you make the wanted list yet? Because if everybody is a criminal, nobody is. It pushes everyone into the exact same boat and solidifies the shared defensive identity.
Yeah, when a threat is so pervasive that it applies to a university student posting online or like a grandmother going to the grocery store,
Yeah.
the fear factor just evaporates.
It's replaced by dark humor.
Exactly. Dark humor and solidarity. Externally, it exposes the reality that the state isn't actually targeting a small group of political radicals. It is attempting to criminalize an entire democratic way of life.
I want to zoom out for a second here because our sip and talkers are tuning in from all over the globe, right? And many of them are deeply embedded in the tech, finance, and business sectors.
Yeah.
So a skeptic might be listening and thinking, okay, this is a tense regional dispute over pineapples, tourist visas, and political labels. Why should someone sitting in a boardroom in Silicon Valley or a lab in Berlin care about these 10 love letters?
They need to care because what we're watching is basically the beta test for global economic coercion.
Oh, wow. Okay, explain.
We have to look at the supply chain. Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips that power literally everything, from AI models to smartphones to automotive systems.
Right. It's the lifeblood of the modern economy.
Exactly.
Wow.
So we discussed earlier how turning off the tourism tap can bankrupt a local town and force a mayor to change their political stance, right?
Yeah.
Imagine what happens when that exact same mechanism of leverage is applied to the global tech supply chain.
Man, if the fatten, trap, and kill strategy works on agriculture, there is absolutely nothing stopping that exact same blueprint from being applied to tech infrastructure, data centers, or global shipping lanes.
The dynamic we are analyzing today, using market access and infrastructural dependence as a weapon to force political capitulation, is the exact playbook that international businesses, multinational tech firms, and foreign governments are going to face.
We are literally watching the blueprint being drawn in real time.
We are. Understanding how Taiwan defends itself institutionally against this coercion is crucial for anyone involved in global trade or tech development.
Institutional defense. That is the perfect phrase to summarize this entire dynamic.
I think so, yeah.
The old era of pure economic complementarity, where one side brings the capital, the other side brings the talent, and everyone just sings kumbaya and does business, that is completely over.
It really has been replaced by a highly calculated protective mechanism. When Taiwan rejects these 10 measures, they aren't doing it out of spite or blind ideology.
Right.
They're securing a societal firewall to protect their democratic lifestyle against perceived political encroachment.
Before we wrap up today's conversation, I do want to quickly ground our discussion, because a core philosophy here at Sip and Talk is objective, international analysis.
Yes, very important.
We dive into the geopolitical mechanics, the supply chain data, and the cultural reactions to encourage independent critical thinking.
That is vital. We are entirely focused on understanding the why and the how behind the headlines. We aren't taking political sides, and we aren't criticizing any specific nation or people.
Exactly.
Our goal is just to map out the architecture of how global influence actually works.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Independent thinking is the most valuable asset you can have in today's information landscape. So, Sip and Talkers, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought.
All right, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire episode analyzing preconditions, economic traps, and stun batons.
We have definitely covered a lot of ground today.
So imagine, hypothetically, that Beijing wakes up tomorrow morning and completely drops all the military threats. The jet fighters stop crossing a median line, the naval vessels just go home,
Okay.
the wanted lists are torn up, and the stun baton is permanently thrown in the trash.
So like a total reset of the pressure.
Right. If all that external pressure vanished overnight, would economic and social integration naturally flourish between the two sides? Or, over the last few decades, have their fundamental societal values, the way they view freedom, governance, the internet, and daily life, simply drifted too far apart for any meaningful integration to ever happen, regardless of how good the economics look?
Man, that is a profound question. Is it merely the military threat keeping them apart? Or is it a fundamental, irreconcilable divergence in what it means to build a society? It really challenges everything we assume about economic diplomacy.
It is definitely something to ponder over your morning coffee. Thank you all so much for hanging out and going down this rabbit hole with us today.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this conversation and learned something new, please hit that subscribe button to Sip and Talk so you never miss a discussion on the topics shaping our world.
And hey, a huge warm shout out to our good old friend Mickey. Mickey is currently out there traveling the world, and you absolutely need to check out his YouTube channel.
Oh, for sure.
It is called Mickey to Life. He is dropping some incredible new travel vlogs right now, and the guy is just amazing.
His content is honestly top tier.
It really is, so go give Mickey to Life a subscribe. All right, Sip and Talkers, stay curious, keep thinking critically, and we will see you next time.